there's been a process that we haven't really spoken about, and many of us have gone back to our own countries, and for whatever reason, there were many others who couldn't. In fact, well, the reasons were because if they were to go back to those countries, they would have been tortured, which is the irony, great irony upon ironies, is that if you go back to the country you came from, you'd be tortured because America held you as a prisoner in Guantanamo, and America doesn't hold people for no reason. Therefore, you are suspect. You were resettled to Serbia, of all places, which is, mind boggles at that. But despite that, you've managed to write a book, you've managed to write articles, you've written one about marriage lessons in Guantanamo. You've mashallah, finished your degree, and most importantly, you've joined CAGE as the Guantanamo project coordinator. Tell me, as shortly as you can, what has been driving you, and what have you been doing in relation to this aspect of the resettlements and people who are struggling since they've returned?
Brother Abdul, it seems as like a resettlement agreement. This is like basically was a resettlement agreement between the United States and the hosting countries based on secret agreement that the lawyers couldn't have any access to see what is actually the actual agreement. But 2015-16, when, as you know, like Obama failed to close the detention, he's tried to free as much as he could from the detainees. And at that time, they issued a law: if anyone accepted by any country, he will be sent against his will. And life after Guantanamo, that's the case I'm working on, and CAGE also work on this case, as you know. It is also, we call it Guantanamo 2.0, especially for the brothers who end up like having no legal status or facing many difficulties or challenges and restrictions to their life. Believe me, like as one of the cases, I think you remember, we work on the brothers who are in the United Arab Emirates. We have been working for years for State Department and lawyers are trying to get at least access to the brothers who were there, just have been freed 2 months ago. And when they arrived, they were sent to Yemen without any coordination with their families, with the government, with the lawyers, with any organizations. And some of them, like less than 24 hours, they were kidnapped again and ended up in the Houthi prison. So basically, depend on the hosting country policy and the system within the country itself. So some of the brothers still live in, they have no legal status, like in Albania, like in Kazakhstan. One of the cases, some of the brothers end up losing their life because the lack of rehabilitation and reintegration, and there is no rehabilitation and reintegration program. My thesis, as a graduated last year, it was about rehabilitation and reintegration of former Guantanamo detainees into social life and the labor market. Surprisingly, there was no rehabilitation or reintegration. The hosting countries, especially, like Serbia, like Kazakhstan, like Senegal, like other countries, they told us, you are here for 2 years and you live under restrictions. The brothers, like for example, in Senegal, after the 2 years, they were deported back to Libya, where they faced jail and torture, and now they don't have any like IDs. The brothers in Albania, for the last 13 years, they don't have any kind of IDs. They didn't have any like legal status. And one of the brothers died recently in Albania. For the last 13 years, lived with like status like this. So basically, there is a lot of difficulties and challenges. I have sent my thesis to the State Department with some kind of recommendation that there should be some kind of reassess of the previous resettlement as part of the closure of Guantanamo and part of the Indian war of terror. Basically, some of the brothers, we live in the stigma and we live in Guantanamo 2.0. And if one of the problems now, we are trying to contact Biden administration, as you know, last year 6 of the former Guantanamo prisoners sent a letter, 8-point plan urging President Biden to close the detention. So far, we haven't found anyone in the State Department or American government to have contacted, because Biden hasn't appointed anyone either for the closure of Guantanamo or for the transfer of the Clear brothers. So basically, I joined CAGE because CAGE was the first organization who worked on Guantanamo case, and they have done a lot of work. And I think as former Guantanamo prisoners and victims, it is our duty to work for the closure of that detention. And as you know, Guantanamo becomes a symbol of torture, injustice, lawlessness, abuse of power, indefinite detention, and Guantanamo now is everywhere. Everywhere, wherever you go, it's Guantanamo, and it is Guantanamo just to house Muslims. We see it in China, we see it in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, and other places. And also within some of the Western countries too, they have their own Guantanamo, or at least the concept of Guantanamo.